Something interesting is happening around the New England Patriots. And if you follow this team closely, you know that every move right now carries a lot of weight. The roster is still being reshaped. The offense is still searching for the right balance. And the front office is clearly trying to build something that can grow over the next few seasons. That is why the recent decision involving wide receiver Romeo Doubs has sparked so much conversation among fans. Some people loved it immediately, others questioned the price tag, and a lot of supporters are still trying to understand exactly what this move means for the direction of the offense. The contract itself caught attention right away. Doubs arrives on a 4-year agreement worth roughly $70 million, with incentives that could push the total value close to $80 million. On the surface, that number can sound heavy for a receiver who many people still view as a second or third option in an offense. When fans see a number like that, the natural reaction is to compare it to other receivers and ask whether the production really matches the investment. But once you start putting the numbers into context with the current market for wide receivers, the picture begins to look very different. One of the first comparisons that came up involved the departure of Stefon Diggs. A lot of people were frustrated when the Patriots moved on from him, especially because he still had moments where he looked productive on the field. But the financial side of that situation was massive. Diggs would have counted roughly $26.5 million against the salary cap, which is a huge commitment for a player entering the later stage of his career. By contrast, Doubs is expected to count roughly $17 million against the cap this season. That difference alone creates valuable flexibility for the roster, especially for a team that is still trying to add pieces across multiple positions. When you compare the deal with other contracts given to wide receivers around the league recently, it starts to look even more reasonable. For example, veteran star Mike Evans signed a deal averaging a little over $16 million per season, while explosive receiver Rashid Shaheed landed a contract in a very similar financial range. In other words, the Patriots did not go wildly above the market here. They paid a number that sits right in the middle of what teams across the league are willing to spend on receivers who can contribute consistently within an offense. Another factor that cannot be ignored is age. Diggs is already in his 30s and has dealt with injuries, including a major knee injury earlier in his career that always raises long-term concerns. Even though he was still able to produce in stretches, the reality is that players at that stage of their career usually do not have many peak seasons left. Doubs, on the other hand, is still in the prime years of his career. That difference matters because the Patriots are not just looking at what a player can do right now. They are also thinking about how that player can grow with the team's young core. And that brings us to another extremely important piece of the puzzle, the development of Drake May. The young quarterback is expected to be the centerpiece of the Patriots' offense moving forward, and giving him reliable weapons is absolutely essential. Doubs brings a skill set that fits well with a developing quarterback. He has shown the ability to run precise routes, create separation in the middle of the field, and become a dependable target when plays break down. During his time with the Green Bay Packers, Doubs built strong chemistry with quarterbacks like Jordan Love and Malik Willis. In several games where other receivers were unavailable due to injuries, he stepped into a much larger role and handled the increased workload effectively. Those stretches showed that he is capable of being more than just a complementary piece in an offense. When he receives a higher number of targets, his production tends to rise significantly. One area where Doubs has quietly become very dangerous is in the red zone. He has a strong sense of positioning, understands how to use leverage against defenders, and consistently finds ways to get open in tight spaces near the goal line. Last season, he scored several touchdowns, many of them coming on plays designed specifically for him in scoring situations. For an offense that struggled at times to finish drives, adding a receiver with that kind of awareness near the end zone could make a noticeable difference. Another reason this signing has potential is versatility. Doubs is comfortable lining up in multiple positions across the formation. He can play on the outside as an X-receiver, move inside into the slot when the offense wants to create mismatches, and attack different levels of the field. That flexibility is something offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels has always valued. His offensive systems historically rely on receivers who can shift roles depending on the formation, forcing defenses to adjust constantly. Of course, not everyone is convinced this move was the right call. Some critics believe the Patriots should have pursued a bigger name through a trade, especially someone like A.J. Brown, whose physical style and elite production have made him one of the most feared receivers in the league. The idea of bringing in a dominant number one option is always appealing to fans, but trades involving star players often come with enormous costs, especially in draft capital. For a team still rebuilding its roster, giving up high draft picks could slow down long-term progress. That is why the strategy here appears to be more balanced. Instead of sacrificing valuable selections, the Patriots added a receiver who still has room to grow while keeping their draft flexibility intact. And that flexibility could become extremely important once the upcoming draft arrives, especially if the team decides to target additional weapons for the offense or reinforce other areas of the roster that still need attention. But there is another layer to this conversation that many fans are starting to realize as they look deeper into the roster construction of the New England Patriots. The signing of Romeo Doubs does not signal the end of the team's search for offensive weapons. In reality, it may only be the beginning of a much larger plan that is still unfolding behind the scenes. A lot of reactions online have been split into two groups. One group believes the Patriots made this move because they are desperate for help at wide receiver and simply needed someone who could step in immediately. The other group sees this as a strategic addition that gives the offense a reliable target, while the front office continues to explore other possibilities. When you look at how this organization has historically approached roster building, the second interpretation seems far more likely. The Patriots have clearly attempted to pursue bigger names during this offseason. There have been multiple reports suggesting that the team explored the possibility of acquiring A.J. Brown from the Philadelphia Eagles. A move like that would instantly transform the offense, but trades involving elite receivers are rarely simple. They often require massive compensation, including high draft picks, and they can also create serious financial complications for both teams involved. Because of that, even if discussions took place, it does not mean the Patriots were ever going to rush into a deal that could hurt them long-term. At the same time, the organization also looked at other receivers in free agency before landing on Doubs. The fact that they were actively exploring several different options tells you that the front office understands how important it is to build a complete receiving group around Drake May. A young quarterback needs more than just one reliable target. He needs multiple players who can create separation, attack different parts of the field, and keep defenses guessing throughout the game. This is where the addition of Doubs becomes interesting from a strategic standpoint. With his ability to line up in multiple spots across the formation, the offense suddenly has more flexibility. He can operate on the outside, work the middle of the field, or become a vertical threat depending on the play design. That kind of versatility gives offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels the freedom to experiment with formations and create mismatches that were not always available last season. Another thing that stands out when you study Doubs' film from his time with the Green Bay Packers is how well he adapts when he becomes a primary option in the offense. There were stretches where injuries forced the Packers to rely heavily on him, and during those moments he showed the ability to handle increased pressure. His route running remained sharp, his hands were reliable, and he continued to find openings in coverage even when defenses began paying closer attention to him. That is exactly the type of receiver who can grow alongside a developing quarterback. The chemistry between a passer and his receivers often takes time to build, but players who understand spacing and timing tend to accelerate that process. If Doubs quickly establishes a connection with May, it could stabilize the offense in ways that statistics alone do not always capture. There is also a psychological element to this move that many fans overlook. When a young quarterback sees the organization actively bringing in new talent to support him, it sends a powerful message about the direction of the team. It shows commitment to building around him and creating an environment where he can succeed. For a player like May, who is expected to carry the franchise into its next era, that kind of support can be incredibly important. Meanwhile, the conversation about the upcoming draft continues to grow louder. The order for the 2026 NFL Draft is now fully set, and the Patriots know exactly where they will be selecting. Their first-round pick sits near the end of the opening round, and that position opens several interesting possibilities. Some analysts believe the team will focus on strengthening the defensive front by selecting an edge rusher who can disrupt opposing quarterbacks and add more pressure to the defensive scheme. However, the second-round pick is where things could become especially intriguing. That spot is often considered a sweet spot for wide receiver talent, particularly in draft classes loaded with athletic pass catchers. If the Patriots decide to continue investing in the offense, selecting another receiver there could give May an even deeper group of targets to work with. Imagine an offense where Doubs serves as a reliable intermediate threat, another receiver stretches the field vertically, and a third option operates primarily in the slot. Suddenly, defenses would have to account for multiple playmakers on every snap, making it far more difficult to focus on shutting down a single player. For a young quarterback, that kind of balance can completely change the rhythm of an offense. There is also the possibility that the Patriots are not finished exploring trade options. The offseason is unpredictable, and situations around the league can change quickly. A team facing salary cap pressure might suddenly become willing to move a player that was previously considered untouchable. If that happens, organizations that preserve their draft capital and financial flexibility are usually the ones best positioned to take advantage of the opportunity. That is another reason the Doubs signing may end up looking smarter as the offseason continues. By securing a dependable receiver without sacrificing major assets, the Patriots kept their options open. They improved the roster immediately while still leaving room to make additional moves if the right opportunity appears. For now, the focus will shift toward how Doubs integrates into the system and how quickly he builds chemistry with May during off-season workouts and training camp. Those early practices often reveal a lot about how an offense will function once the regular season begins, and fans will be watching closely to see whether this new connection starts to develop right away. That approach does not eliminate the possibility of additional moves. Free agency still has time remaining, trade discussions can always resurface, and the draft itself has a way of reshaping expectations overnight. But what this signing clearly signals is that the Patriots are actively working to construct a new offensive foundation, one that could look very different from what fans have seen in recent years. And as the offseason continues to unfold, the next question becomes even more intriguing, because once the draft arrives and teams begin making their selections, the direction of this offense could shift again depending on which prospects eventually join the roster. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to Patriots Hub and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest updates on our New England Patriots. And don't be shy, share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Rumors are swirling in New England as the New England Patriots reportedly set their sights on a high-profile wide receiver to bolster their offensive arsenal. Sources close to the team suggest that management has been quietly evaluating several top-tier targets, and the whispers point toward a move that could reshape the Patriots' passing game. While no official confirmation has emerged, insiders indicate that the team's front office is determined to make a statement, signaling a willingness to go all in on a player who can immediately elevate the squad's explosive potential. This development coincides with what some analysts are describing as a more aggressive offensive blueprint, one that seems designed to maximize the talents of a true difference-maker on the perimeter. The Patriots have long been known for their strategic approach, carefully crafting game plans around elite quarterbacks, but recent chatter hints at a shift toward a more dynamic, vertical attack that could challenge defensive coordinators league-wide. Observers note that adding a top receiver would not only stretch opposing defenses, but also open opportunities for playmakers already on the roster, creating a ripple effect that could redefine how New England approaches every down. Fans are speculating wildly on social media, with names of several potential targets circulating in threads and podcasts. While the team's official channels remain tight-lipped, the intensity of these rumors reflects a growing sense that the Patriots are preparing for a bold move. Analysts point out that such acquisitions are not just about talent. They signal intent, a message to both the league and their fan base that New England is aiming to recapture its competitive edge. With this possible addition, the offense could become a more versatile, unpredictable unit, capable of executing high-octane plays that have often eluded them in recent seasons. As the story develops, the sports world watches with bated breath, aware that a single blockbuster signing could ignite a chain reaction from the locker room to the stadium stands. If the whispers prove true, the Patriots might just be poised to unleash a new era of offensive firepower, one that fans and commentators alike will be talking about for months. For now, it's all speculation, but the energy surrounding this potential acquisition has already set tongues wagging. promising an electrifying chapter in New England's football narrative. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our New England Patriots, be sure to subscribe to Patriots Hub and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.